Okay, here's our second recording, and now we're going to go back through the flow and make some comments. So the first comment is, as we build the style, it's active now, but it can be in a style mode. We've got this situation for the fabrication. And what Silver wants is they want to put in the unit cost and then have
You're not showing
behind the scene.
anything in case you are trying to.
Thank you, Kathleen. So back to the screen, and on the Silver side, they'd like to put in the unit cost and then have the system calculate the weight of the precious metal times the basis, come up with the precious metal cost, and subtract unit cost from precious metal to come up with fabrication value add. On the gold side, they'd like in the vendor grid to have a vendor default for the amount of labor times the weight to come up with this. In this case, say $10 per gram, 10 times 4 is 40. And by looking at the vendor and multiplying by the grams, populate the fabrication value add. Out of the box, of course, one does those things manually. The second thing is in the customer proposal. Currently, Silver handles freight and duty and packaging as Excel formulae in their customer proposal. So it's the Excel sheet that is defining those values. Whereas in the gold side, currently with Procom, these values are calculated and they come out automatically in the customer proposal. So we've got to vet those two processes out. In both cases, the calculation of these packaging costs and the freight and the duty can all be done automatically. It depends on what tool is used. So we can talk about that. Kathleen also brought out on the price cost tab, typically, excuse me just for a minute. So on the Silver side, on the customer proposal, you see the differences in the cost based upon anticipated market values. In this case, $20.25 versus $24.25. And that's part of the formulae in the Excel spreadsheet that helps define that. On the gold side, similar type situations where there is a basis price here at 400. That's their basis with the vendor, but then the anticipated sell price at 2,000. So how is that manifest? Something that we can all.
The sales price worksheet, just saying that it has a lot of capabilities.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of work to on terms of price class, a lot of capabilities to price by customer, to price by price class, to give different options on how the price works, and then to tie that into, of course, the fact that you've got a basis price and then you've got a market price, you've got anticipated market prices, all associated with that cost proposal. So certainly, here's the price worksheets. And here are the base customer price class, customer price. You might have a fixed price for a customer within a given range. All of these can drive values within Acumatica as it relates to price. And from our standpoint, it's price at purchase and price at proposal. And those are different phases. So we kind of want. And then in purchasing, that we've got this important market price. So this was the market price in our example on October 15th. But obviously, if we rebuy, say, the following March or something, and the market's at, $2,015, that's what's going to populate this field, and that will drive the cost of the market. And then that whole process in terms of managing purchase orders is a process for vetting. Okay, so we did the landed cost manually, but Kathleen, please go through what you've been working on in terms of the automated approach.
Right. So basically, what was asked was to have the system automate these entries for the duty and for the freight, looking up the rates that have been as defined already, either for the duty or for the rate. The freight is actually based on unit of measure, whereas the customs duty is based on a percentage of the cost. And that is to automate the process to actually do the postings to the actual inventory items.
And then in terms of the customer proposal, currently on the silver side, uh, customs is a relationship of the country of origin and the rules therein, and there's essentially a Excel formula that populates that. That's essentially mirrored within Acumatica. When we're talking about customs and freight here, we're talking about at the time of receipt, your customers require custom and duty and freight be included in part of the proposal. So that is an area that has to be vetted.
Doing it manually today in their system, and they want it automated.
Right. So currently you're doing it manually, and that's how Acumatica works, but we can give some proposals together to automate that process. So in terms of the warehouse, one thing we mentioned was we've got locations, we've got the vault concept on the Stanley side. The Roman and Sunstone does not use that concept. So we got some nomenclature to give. I mean, essentially, this is where locations where things are stocked. So working that out will be a job. And then there are, in terms of when we showed how we shipped something, uh, there are 5 flows in Acumatica that we've worked with Jeff and Wayne on, and so those require work 3 are fully supported right now, and so we can run a number of stem to stern workflows utilizing those as a basis. One other thing, when we did this presentation, we were showing the browser based UI. We also have the mobile app UI. Both the browser base has a scan capability and the mobile. With the browser, you've got like a tablet with a USB port and a tethered scanner that costs $50. In mobile, the scanner's built into your handheld scanner. It's about the size of a smartphone, and you scan stuff. So there's a couple of different approaches, both of which are supported by. One other thing that as you go through this on both the silver and the gold side, you notice all these in the grid, all these different columns. Well, some apply to like matrix and ceiling and floor on the price applies on the silver side. It doesn't apply on the gold side. So these are easily added and removed. And so the user community should start working with optimizing the configurable areas that are available to them so that you don't have to scan back and forth if you only need half of these types of columns. So, and that applies throughout the whole Acumatica product. And then the final thing I'll bring up is that, especially on the a silver side, often you buy product that is packaged by your vendor. Sometimes they charge you labor. You've got the duty costs, and that all is going to be associated with a inventory ID that's going to require that will include the 5th segment, and that 5th segment is the packaging. So on the silver side, you buy it that way. On the gold side, you assemble it that way, and that's for the in-house labor cost. And this kit specification defines the item, and then there's a way to generate a work order internally to assemble the packaging internally or to buy it externally. And we'll do a separate kind of video on that walkthrough because that's important for stem to stern process flows and testing and vetting as it relates to items that include packaging. So another thing to test is the customer allowances. In this case, Sears has got a 1% allowance. So as an example, if they buy like $1 million, 1% of $1 million, what 10% is 100,000, $10,000, they would get a $10,000 allowance, which would be a credit memo that would be applied. So one of the things we want to vet on the stem to stern is to buy enough stuff so that the given customers realize their allowance.
Yep.
So one other thing that we did not show in the walkthrough, the quick walkthrough, was the compliance management that's on the item record. And you've got all these different uh, test criteria that you have. And so as we're receiving goods, we want to run through the compliance management functionality that's been added to the standard Acumen. And then the final thing is that we've got the jewelry valuation tab. And so as we run through the tests and we as we run through stem to stern and we buy a lot of product and we put it into stock and we start building up a book of
Unchecked
items in
for Tony.
inventory, then we're able to determine, put in the mark to market for gold, the mark to market for silver, push the button, and this will provide a GI that will go through the entire system, add up all the on-hand precious metal, and then on a mark-to-market basis, give you what the current value is for the software. So one of the benefits of starting this testing in earnest is that we'll also be able to build up a database of items in the warehouse so that we can then do the on-hand jewelry valuation test. So there you
If
have
you
it.
uncheck for Tony, I think you'll get some records. That's a
Oh, thank you. All
customized
right,
thing.
great. So there's some records that we have. We've already received a bunch of silver. There's that test gold band that I just did. Um, and like we say, you'll be able to go ahead and run this report and it'll give you your current value at the current market price. So thank you so very, very much. And we'll take it.